It is right at the top of the hour. I'm going to go ahead and get us started. As you come in, please feel free to say, hello in the chat, pop in where you're doing, how's the weather? Everybody likes to hear how cold it is elsewhere or how warm it is. Welcome to the January Community of Practice. And my name is Diana Bogan. I am a faculty development and coaching specialist in the Faculty Affairs Department. And today we're focusing on developing a philosophy of teaching that is rooted in the UAGC culture of care. And my slides are being funny. So for today's session, we want to use this training to demonstrate how weaving the culture of care into one's teaching philosophy will benefit both instructors and students. A well-articulated teaching philosophy that reflects on various learning theories, embraces the culture of care, and incorporates your own successful strategies will make teaching more enjoyable and effective. We want faculty to view their teaching philosophy as not just another task or box to tick, but rather as a framework to empower you and provide you with information that has been proven to contribute to student success. Okay, so first of all, we're going to start off with a poll. Jackie's going to launch that in just a moment. Just simply, have you written a philosophy of teaching statement?
So sorry, we're having an issue right now. I'm getting an error message that I'm logged into another. I'm sorry.
Let me see if I can launch
It
it.
is in there. I don't know why it's.
No problem. I got it. Thank you.
You got it? Okay, awesome.
Everybody should see that now. All right, we're about 80%. All right, that is good. I'm gonna share these results with you, and it looks like most of you have written a philosophy of teaching statement, which we would hope would be the case. But some of you haven't looked at it in a while, and that's okay. All right, so moving on. I am trying to make this work. There you go. So we launched last year in August a faculty curriculum, and included in that was a course called Leveraging a Teaching Philosophy. It's in Workday. And this helps you develop a philosophy of teaching statement that can act as a guide to assist you with your teaching and classroom facilitation. So if you have a teaching philosophy and you maybe haven't looked at it in a while, I recommend that you take this course because it introduces you to learning theory and asks you to reflect on your teaching practices in order to develop a statement that clearly articulates your beliefs and practices on teaching and learning. And we are going to drop that link into the chat so you can save that for later. And if you don't grab it now, we'll always send this out. So moving on, just in the chat, we'd love to hear from you. How do you define the culture of care as it relates to your role? Whether you are a full-time faculty, associate faculty, if you're staff, student-facing, how do you define the culture of care in your everyday work? Let me just open up my chat, give you a chance to kind of. All right, supporting students to ensure success, being flexible, open-minded, and available, meeting students where they are. I really like that one. Understanding student needs and situation, being there for students. I think that those are all great because understanding students is really important to our student population. Hearing the students' underlying needs or concerns, looking to find tools to support them moving forward. Whatever it takes to support, encourage, and motivate. Do your best to support faculty as they support students. Darla, that is amazing too. We like to say that the culture of care does not just apply to our students. It applies to our faculty and our staff too, because how can we embody a culture of care if we're not thinking about the people that we work with too? All right, these are all great, and we will definitely share the chat or save the chat. I am going to go ahead and hand this off to Amy, and she's going to talk more.
Hi, I'm Amy Erickson, and as you likely know, the UAGC culture of care fosters a community grounded in trust and belonging. We believe our culture provides opportunities for individuals to thrive academically, professionally, and personally, creating a transformative student experience. So before we get started, though, I think it's acknowledge a few things about the culture of care. We recognize that although the culture of care was created to increase student success and decrease student stress, it has inadvertently created more stress for some instructors. And this was never the intent. It's our hope that we can shift the culture of care to a mindset rather than a task to complete. And perhaps that mindset can benefit both you and your students. And if you can go ahead and advance the slides, Diana. So we recognize that with this culture of care, with this mindset, we want to increase access to education. We want to address and serve traditionally underserved populations. We want an understanding of UAGC students, our student demographics, and we want to also understand the challenges that non-traditional students may face. So I want you to think of it as a mindset that embraces this understanding of our student populations. They face challenges like juggling a family, having a career, having military obligations, caring for elderly parents, and not allowing those obstacles to become roadblocks. Now, we also recognize that some of our adjunct faculty work for multiple institutions. At one time, I worked for 5 different universities, and they were all very different in terms of their approach as well as their expectations. Some courses were graduate level courses. Other courses were at a community college, where I often had post-secondary education option students, which meant I had high schoolers in the class. Another school, the majority of my students were military. So as you would expect and understand, all of these schools had different initiatives and expectations. But this is really important to UAGC, this culture of care. And we want you to think about it, like Diana said, shifting it from a task to a mindset. Another thing our team often talks about, we call it the myth of shared experience. And we just like to remind each other that we all have vastly different experiences, and to assume that our experiences are similar to someone else's simply isn't fair. I had professors who refused to be flexible with me, but that shouldn't mean that I'm not going to be flexible with students because somehow their experiences warrant the same kind of treatment. In my situation, I had a professor who wouldn't reschedule a test even though I was traveling as a member of the university rowing team. My student may have a sick child, an elderly parent with an injury, or an important work meeting that requires their attendance. So to simply say my professors weren't helpful for me, therefore I'm not going to be helpful for you, that really misses the mark. So instead, what I try to do is to be a bit more imaginative with my students and consider that whatever is preventing them from completing their work in a timely manner is likely far more challenging than anything I've ever experienced, and certainly more difficult than what I experienced between 18 and 22. Diane, if you could go ahead and... So we've talked a little bit about what the culture of care is, and I think it's important to also talk about what it's not. The culture of care is not a lack of rigor in course content or a lowering of standards related to deadlines. And as Diana mentioned before, it's not a policy that applies solely to students. We want to apply it to faculty and staff at UAGC too, and know that if you ever need help, please reach out. We want to show similar understanding and support to you. And Diane, if you could go ahead and advance the slide. Excuse me. So let's revisit the purpose of this community of practice. We want to use this session to demonstrate how weaving the culture of care into one's teaching philosophy will benefit both students and instructors. And we want you to have all of the ingredients to craft a teaching philosophy that empowers you, gives you autonomy, and allows you to spend time and energy doing the things you love to do in the classroom. And that is helping your students succeed. And we know that all of our faculty are experts in the content they are teaching. There's no question about that. And we're so thankful for your experience and your expertise. We recognize, however, that not all faculty have a background in education, and we want to be here to help. So we want faculty to be confident that their teaching practices are rooted in research-informed theories and techniques, and that those teaching practices are aligned to your own values and your students' needs. So it's our hope that by completing the Leveraging a Philosophy of Teaching course and understanding the important elements of a teaching philosophy and aligning that philosophy to the culture of care, that will enhance your entire teaching experience and help your students. If you can go ahead and advance the slide, Diana. And I'll hand it back to you. Oh, wait, no, are we doing this first? Sorry. I think you moved some of these around. I think you are doing this one first, aren't you, Diana?
Oh, this one's you.
Oh, this one's me. Fantastic. Okay, so what we're going to do is look at a few examples of statements from teaching philosophies that embody the culture of care. And also you can see how not only does this embody the culture of care, but it also then applies it in the classroom. So this one, I seek to develop relationships with students to show them that I support them in their academic endeavors. This allows me to provide feedback and resources based on individual goals and interests. That's an example of one. Let's look at another one, Diana. So I believe that education should not merely transmit knowledge, but ignite a passion for lifelong learning. This requires an understanding of the unique challenges students may face outside of the classroom and a genuine empathy towards their experiences. I'm happy to provide flexibility in terms of deadlines because I want to provide, now someone's talking and I can't see over that. Okay, because I want to provide a path to success and not an obstacle course. So we're giving you these examples because when we go into our breakout rooms today, we're going to have you in your breakout rooms co-create a statement like this, a statement that would embody the culture of care and a statement that would be in your teaching philosophy. If you could advance the slide, Diana. Let's look at another. I wholeheartedly believe that all students should be treated with respect and their commitment to pursue education should be honored. Students should be encouraged and inspired. This guides me whenever I'm interacting with students in discussions. Okay, another example of how that influences an instructor's behavior. I recognize that life's demands often intersect with academic pursuits, and I'm dedicated to providing a supportive space where students feel heard, understood, and valued. My feedback on student assignments always reminds students that they belong here in higher education, and I seek to congratulate as well as correct. Okay, so those are just a couple examples to give you an idea of where we're going to go today. If you could advance the slide, Diana.
Okay, and this one, Amy, is mine.
There you go. Now it's your turn. Trying to give you more work.
Sorry. It's okay. So participation in the chat, talking, or being on camera is encouraged but never required. So just some reminders that I wanted to go over before we go into breakout sessions. We never want you to feel uncomfortable or obligated to participate. We want this to be a safe place for learning. You're not obligated to join a breakout room. But if you do join a breakout room, you can simply join to listen and learn. And we are going to try this time. We're going to have a breakout room here so that you don't have to go move into a separate room. And so Amy's going to be here to chat with anyone who doesn't want to go off into a breakout room. But we do want you to stick around because we'll discuss the key takeaways from the breakout sessions, and Amy has more to share about the culture of care and how it applies directly to your teaching. So hang out till then. Just one last note, if your camera is off, breakout room facilitators will not call on you for participation unless your hand is raised. Okay.
Diana,
Yes.
can I also mention that each room will have a moderator to help with the
Yes.
facilitation of the co-construction, so you're not left by your lonesomes.
Yes, we are joined today. That was getting right to that. We are joined today by other members of the Faculty Affairs Department, and they are going to be there to help facilitate these breakout sessions. And they will take care of taking the notes and sharing the culture of care statements that you could create. So we're going to break out into those breakout rooms so that you can, like those examples that we showed, co-construct your own statement that could be used in a philosophy of teaching. And we are, Jackie's working on those breakout rooms. Here is the link to that document that we talked about. It has the prompt here that's on the screen. It has the examples that we shared. Plus, it also has a link to the philosophy of teaching worksheet, but I copied in just the writing prompts that have questions that might help with a variety of questions that may help you as you construct your statements. So moderators will also have access to this document. So if you don't want to worry about opening it now, that's fine. And whenever you're ready, Jackie.
Ready? Let's do it.
Welcome. I just want to make sure you guys have all seen the content that was shared there in the chat. Just pulling it up too. So after looking at those examples and based on some of your own experiences in the classroom, does anyone want to start or give us some place where we can begin the discussion or?
Amy, I thought in the worksheet that you provided that the different categories that one might use to organize a philosophy of teaching, one of them was specifically, was it advocacy? I need to look at this again. Sorry, yeah, student advocacy. That struck me as a useful place to start.
Wonderful.
I don't know, what did anybody think about those categories?
Well, this is Ron. I think the categories are a good launch. My concern with mine, maybe it was too wordy, too big. I have it on another computer, so I'm trying to pull it up. So I may have gone into, I got into wordisms. I can't help it. I really got kind of carried away.
That's all right. Do you want to share some of it or even part of it with us or?
Well, I'm trying to get it on my other computer so I can read it.
Oh,
to you.
I see. I see. Okay. We have a little delay. That's all right. I know I saw some of these categories I thought were really interesting. Things like how do you handle stress in the classroom, challenging situations in the classroom. You know, how does the culture of care inform how you do those things? How do you?
Yeah, I appreciated those. Sorry, Amy, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I appreciated those questions. You know, for me, they redirected my focus away from culture of care tasks to just general dispositions or general approaches that, you know, maybe could be defined later by specific tactics I take, but I had never really thought about that before in a teaching philosophy, like how do I handle stress in the classroom? And that could be, you know, maybe my articulation of that could be a good model for students as well. That might help with civil discourse in the classroom. That might help us get through even challenging feedback conversations. I know one thing I do say in my teaching philosophy and this is something I just developed recently, prompted by these conversations, is to say that if I am critical in my feedback, or if I'm pushing you in my feedback, it's because I care what you think. It's like calling that out explicitly, because feedback can be uncomfortable, right? It might cause students to shut down. It certainly causes me to shut down sometimes, but thinking, maybe calling that out would help prompt more discourse and conversation and like ease the reception of the feedback. But that is related to stress. So I don't know.
No, it's a
I
really
feel like
great.
I'm just blabbing.
No, I think that's a really important point, because if you take that stress down in the classroom, what we know from, what the neuroscience says is, if people are under stress, if they are afraid, if these things are affecting them, that affects their capacity for memory. It affects their ability to think, because they can feel under threat. And if you're feeling under threat, you're not going to be able to learn. So it's a really important, and if we have students in the classroom who have traditionally maybe not been able to rely upon adults for honest feedback, or for feedback that has been direct but laced with, they may not know how to react to that. So being really abundantly clear about that in your feedback, I think, is a really important place to start. Because if you can take down that, do you remember when Donna Beagle was here and she said, students who come from a background of poverty don't feel like they belong here. So they are constantly feeling imposter syndrome. And so to ensure, so any sort of criticism may make them feel all the more like, see, I knew it, I don't belong here, I'm out, So how do we overcome that? How do we, and I'm not just saying just flatter people and, give them unnecessary kudos. I'm saying, like, how do we do this, and how do we establish these relationships? Bradford Harris has a comment. Please go ahead, Bradford.
I do, and I'm sorry, my camera's not working at the moment. I'm trying to
No
fix it, so I do
problem.
apologize.
No.
I don't know if I'm opening up a can of worms here, but as I'm looking at these categories, and we're all teachers in this space, are we looking at these questions as teachers in the regular classroom or in the virtual online setting? Because I look at these as things that could be the same or different, because sometimes when you're teaching online, it's a very different world, but there are some common themes. But like when we're looking at how do you motivate students, it's very different when you're in the brick and mortar space versus the online space, because you're having to build relationships a lot stronger. So are we looking at it from both angles, or these are just general statements? I'm just curious.
I think that's a really interesting question, since our audience here is primarily, well, since it's for UAGC, I think we're thinking more along the lines of online. But I think it makes sense to me that a residential teaching philosophy might be slightly different than an online teaching philosophy. I think that totally makes sense. As you know, in a residential classroom, you can meet with students for 30 minutes and sit down with them and talk with them. They're kind of a captive audience, right? But that may be more difficult to do in an online class. But I think if we could focus the discussion on online for this, I think that would be great. But for you, Bradford, I think that's a really, really excellent point, that your teaching philosophy may have some slight tweaks to it. Does anyone else in the room have experience with residential teaching where they could speak to that as well? And please just feel to go ahead and talk, yeah, feel free.
Yeah, this is Ron. I think the big difference with teaching with on ground classroom is I enjoy getting a debate going between people, which is a lot easier. Did you hear what John said? Do you really agree with that? Versus what you can do in a virtual classroom. I think that's for me, one of the biggest differences.
Yeah, because you take tone out of it, and facial expressions and all these things could be misunderstood in an online classroom. And that's a really good point.
Something else though, that we have to our advantage in the online environment is I remember sitting in lecture or in my, like upper level courses. And I say this frequently as a teacher's kid, I always responded, even if I wasn't 100% sure if I was right or not. But I would say out of the 20-person class, there's probably 12 people who generally just didn't talk, just didn't participate, unless they were forced to. And that was really uncomfortable for them. Some of them were my friends, and that's not a great learning experience or environment. That's highly stressful for them. So in the online environment, when we are asynchronous, we do have the opportunity to engage learners in a time frame that feels more comfortable for them. So they have the opportunity to think through what they're going to share. I didn't want to say that, but because I like to embarrass Newt any chance I get, I did want to talk about how my classroom management style fits into the culture of care and how that is a tenet of my teaching practice. When I first started teaching, I assumed that it was my job to sit above, to be a person standing up on a box, someone they looked up to, this is what you can achieve. And it's not that I don't think that my students want to achieve what I've achieved, but through knowing Newt and his research, what I have discovered, and is much more natural to my own just style of engaging with people, is that I'm very much myself. I come to the classroom as myself. Sometimes when I'm sending videos, it's like I just got back from a walk because I just finished grading everybody's paper and I just want to give some summative feedback to the summative assignment. Or I pull in my kids and I'm like, hey, they think they wanted to tell you guys did a great job on your paper or something like that too. Just really normal. I'm in the trenches with you. Like we're walking this shoulder to shoulder. That to me is how I represent myself. It's the way that the lens through which I see my communication. It's the lens through which I see my feedback. It's the lens through which I am proactive with when students are missing grades or, running into issues. That, for me, that aligned perfectly with culture of care. I didn't have to do much changing to that. It's great that it's sort of naturally how I am as a person as well. But that helps me reduce a whole lot of stress, a whole lot of decision fatigue, because I've already established what my values are in the classroom in regards to that. And so I just make decisions based on those values.
That's so nice, Kate, because it's like this whole idea of being a learner alongside your students takes away so much of the kind of fear or the kind of angst that could, if you're coming to them, and it makes you almost more like a peer, someone who's just also very interested in the content, interested in their material, interested in their progress. Seems like that would really also take down these walls around you as far as being approachable, being able to ask you for additional help. You're not some scary person that they're terrified of. I remember when I taught this residential class, the first day I was just, giving them all the information and stuff. And the woman came up to me at the end and she said, at first you seemed so scary. And I was like, really? I'm the least scary person, but you have no idea how students are, but how they're interpreting your behavior until when she said that. It was just a real eye opener for me. She said, "Oh, but then you started laughing at something," and I thought, "Oh, thank goodness! She has a sense of humor. This is going to be just fine." So relating with your students, being similarly interested, not someone who's sitting up here who's learned it all. I really, really like that. I think that's really nice.
No, I'm definitely not a person who learns at all, because I read one thing, then I stop reading that because they mentioned something else. And so then I fall down a rabbit hole in that direction and, always reading.
Right.
jump in real quick on the gentleman that spoke about the difference between face-to-face and online. I think what Amy just said also kind of adds to that, to me, the biggest thing, because I enjoy on face-to-face. I didn't even think I would, the jury was out when I came to back when it was asked for when it was online. I'm like, how am I going to do this? Because my whole style is based on rapport and you know, body language and reading the room. I'm a Socratic's teacher, so like I don't even know how I'm going to do this, but nevertheless, I'm still here, so something must be working. But the thing, I think the largest thing that we have to realize face to face versus on ground, which I believe makes online instruction a little bit more difficult, is we have to be very intentional with our words, very intentional with our questioning strategies. We have to backwards design everything. I have to think about how a student is going to respond, react, or whatever to what I'm saying, doing, how I'm putting it out. And I mean, I've missed sometimes, you know what I mean? I've missed sometimes. And the issue is when you miss online, it's a bigger mess to clean up because they can't see my face. They don't see my body language. They don't see my shoulder slump or my face change. Like, oh, that's really not what I meant. You know, I didn't mean to say it that way. Now help me out. You know, and I have to be able to. I have to be able to print that. And there's time that goes in between the time something takes place and I respond or react to it. So that organic discourse and the backwards designing and intentional planning, I think makes this a little bit more difficult. However, I still do some things face to face. And because I teach online, I have become a much better face to face instructor because I'm thinking about things and I'm not just in the flow. It's just not just, you know, the aura of Newt Miller happening. There's really some instructional strategies, philosophies, and techniques taking place on purpose. That being said, you asked for about a culture of care statement. So I wrote something recently for something else. It's a couple of paragraphs. I'll read it to you. I don't know if it'll help with what our task is, but it says, I prioritize cultivating a culture of care in every student, where every student feels valued, supported, and empowered to thrive. I believe in creating a learning environment that fosters not just academic growth, but also emotional, social, and personal development. I'm committed to understanding the diverse backgrounds, experiences, and perspectives of each student, acknowledging their individual needs and strengths through active listening, open communication, academic accommodation, and genuine compassion. I strive to create a safe space where students feel comfortable expressing themselves and taking intellectual risks. I aim to instill in my students the value of empathy, resilience, and social responsibility. Ultimately, my goal is to create an environment where students not only excel academically, but also feel seen, heard, and valued as individuals, fostering a lifelong commitment for caring for themselves and others, thus preparing them not only for academic success, but also to become compassionate and engaged global citizens. So to me, that's what culture of care is.
Amazing. That's
It's
amazing.
intertwined with my philosophy.
I think that's lovely, and you did an amazing job of taking those elements of the culture of care and explaining how that translates to your classroom and to your students. That's beautiful. If you want to put that in the chat, we'd be more than happy. Yeah, Teresa, jump in.
I just wanted to observe, Newt, I think what you just did there, connected to what you were talking about, and Bradford were talking about the nuances between in-person and online teaching. I realized the first time I did online, because I too had only been in the classroom, like physical classroom before, is that this concept, I don't know, is anybody like a literature scholar in here? I know Amy is. But there's this concept in literature, laying the device bare, where an author will, instead of hinting at something or using metaphor or analogy or something like that, they just like really explicitly indicate in their writing the specific device that they're using. When I started teaching online, that became more and more important to me just in regular communication, right? Don't just dangle something for a student. Say, I am asking you this because X, or I am interested in this because Y, or, I'm doing this right now with you because I would like to see you, something. Essentially just explaining all of your steps and your thought process so that there is less room for misinterpretation. So that statement you just read, Newton, I feel like that it did that, right? You laid your teaching devices bare for your students. So they know on the front end, anything that is coming from you to them is rooted in that strategy, that philosophy. I don't know, that idea of just being explicit with the intention behind all your communication to students is a way to show care.
I loved your reference to backward design too in classroom organization. I thought those were really, and just how thoughtful you have to be about, so you don't have to do the backtracking. I thought that was really, really valuable too. Thank you so much for sharing that with us here. Derek, did you want to add anything or?
Actually, I was really being a fly on the wall, learning a lot. Uh, I will say, just from my experience, from I guess, a philosophy perspective, my background operations and supply chain, and at previous universities, any student that came to the course was immediately felt defeated for one or two reasons. One, content was completely new to them, or two, they heard from other students online that the course is very challenging. I found what worked for me, and it was really almost like just a shift from night to day. I simply made a video. Well, actually, I'll confess, I did two videos. The first video I did, I really scared the students unknowingly until someone warned me. A student told me how the video made them feel. And basically what I said in this video was, you want to go through the course text. A lot of students think they can get through this course easily, and then they run into a brick wall. This course will be, and just not realizing how that just could make someone feel defeated. And one student basically, she didn't even respond to me directly. She left a comment on the video and just spoke against what I said, basically saying that this course will not be challenging for me. I will pass this course in the timeline in which I've created. And it just made me rethink it. And I created a new video, and I told students that, look, there's a lot of new content in this course, but if you follow the blueprint that I'm about to share with you, you can get through this course very easily. And that was like a game changer for a lot of students. So for me, I found that being proactive to, one, understand that there's always going to be a sense of fear for some students in particular when it comes to any course, because they're learning, they don't have a certain level of expertise like most instructors do. And not only did that make students feel more comfortable, but to Kate's point, I think it also tore down a lot of the barriers related to trust and being comfortable reaching out to the instructor too, because they saw that I was rooting for them instead of against them. And when they saw that I was on their team, they felt more comfortable reaching out to me. So yeah, that would be my 2 cents to add, I guess.
I've heard people say it's easier to just how you flip the mindset of that, instead of, I have a friend who uses this example. They say it's easier to work out to stay in shape than it is to not be fat. You know what I mean? Like just the wording of that, you know what I mean? Like that people be like, oh, I'm going to go work out because I'm going to keep my VO2 max really high. Okay. That's a very different mindset than like, oh my gosh, I can't eat tonight unless I go work out. You know what I mean? So I think that whole mindset thing you just talked about is so interesting. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah.
It looks like we got the whole room back. We needed more time. Oh, Paul, good news. Yeah, I think we could have talked longer as well. I think we're waiting on a few more.
I know that we definitely could have used more time in my room. Of course, they
Well,
had
there's always teams.
We're all back.
Keep talking in teams.
there is, and one thing that I know for the folks that were in my team, my room, we definitely got everybody had a chance to share their nuggets. We just didn't have a chance to kind of put it all together into one statement. So I mentioned that I would post these in teams, and it looks like I think I got just about everybody's name. I copied it in there, and I want to, if you're not in teams, hopefully you are, I will tag you in my message so that you can help me edit what you wrote, because I think that was a great session, and we came away with some really awesome statements. I will read one quick, just a couple nuggets, and then I'm going to turn it over to somebody else so that can probably tired of hearing me talk. Sorry. Some great things that we heard. I want my students to be able to reach me for support. I want to be connected and engaged in the classrooms. I want them to have fun, to learn, and want them to continue learning. We talked about it being a reciprocal process, that they have knowledge to impart to their students, but they also have knowledge to give back to them. So understanding students, helping them feel empowered, heard, and appreciated while balancing student needs and flexibilities, and also helping them to stay on track, to be successful. We had a lot of conversation on how the culture of care is more than just giving everybody an extension. It's looking at what that student specifically needs and being able to meet their needs in their best interest. So that is my quick summation of the very awesome conversation that our room has, and it probably doesn't do it justice, but I want to pass it along to somebody else to chat.
This was really a great discussion, and I'm really grateful for my group. Shauna posted, I tried at the very end to kind of consolidate it and come up with a statement. We will put it in the Teams page, but Shauna, also, if you can just post our bullet points, because we did have a bunch of bullet points. So I just want to thank our group very much for their contributions. It was wonderful.
Same, Sally. We had our room. We had people. We had a great group that was already prepared. I mean, we already thinking along the lines of culture of care, already with their teaching philosophy statements ready. I learned a new George Eliot quote in there that I want to share with you all. I'll also put it in the chat. It says this: "It is never too late to be what you might have been." And I included what we ended up doing is taking almost every statement. Well, we took a bit, we went through each individual statement and grabbed a bullet point out of each one. So we have maybe, I don't know how many it is together, because Zoom told me that our message was too big to post as one message, so I had to break it into two. But it is what we did. So we have part one and part two listed there from the room we were in. It really was a great conversation.
I just want to say real quick, we had an amazing group of individuals, and we used the power of ChatGPT to put all of every person's ideas into that particular tool. And then we created a prompt, and then we were able literally to share. And then finally, Bill, of course, came up with the idea, okay, Benita, now tell ChatGPT you want to take it down and put it into 5 sentences. So we did that. And that was fun. So that was an amazing process. We had so many people in there telling us, okay, let's do it this way. Let's do it that way. We had a ball. I put it in chat. It was a lot of information, trying to take keywords and notes from all 6 people or 7 people in the room was so much fun. So of course, it could be fleshed out probably a little bit more, but that's how we did our process to get everybody to be part of the process. So just wanted to say that.
I love
Wish I had
using
thought.
those, that you use those tools, Benita. That sounds like a lot of fun. I
Yeah, I wish
posted some bullet points that I'll synthesize later, and again, following suit, tag the folks that were in my team in the Microsoft Teams channel. So there's a few bullet points that speak to our faculty's approach to teaching and their commitment to lifelong learning, using a servant leadership approach. Some other highlights included our discussion of when faculty feel affirmed in their teaching, and I posted a few examples in the chat there. One of our group members shared that he feels affirmed when a student earns an A because their success is his success, which I really appreciated. And other faculty members use an approach to their teaching philosophy to communicate that they create a learning, an online learning community, and respond sincerely to their students. And that sincerity allows them to improve or go further with their work and their learning. So shared a few other things in the chat.
Well, we had a great room as well. There was a few people shared. We've had some technical difficulties, so some people weren't able to share. They were getting content off of one computer to another. And Newton shared a wonderful piece for us as well. I'm hoping, Newton, that you will post that in Teams so we can continue this conversation. But some of the things we talked about were showing up as ourselves, not putting ourselves on a pedestal, making sure students understand that we are learners as well as they are. That allows us to then live our values in the classroom, to be very intentional about our words, our questions, our engaging with students, making sure we are looking at it almost from a backward design perspective to increase organization, making students feel valued. And it was just a wonderful conversation. Like I said, we're going to take this conversation to Teams and keep it going. And so we'll be definitely posting some content there for you. And I'm wondering, is there anyone else who needs to chat? Did we cover all of our groups?
If I could add one. Yeah, Paul, please.
Okay. Yeah, our group, we had, it was an amazing discussion, and, one of the instructors shared about just, the whole developing a teaching philosophy, and she had a military student just even recently was stressing out about looking toward deployment. And so she was coming up with this analogy of, being on the road, and that she wanted to basically communicate to this military student to, enjoy the journey, stop and enjoy, the sights, the smell of the roses. But there are going to be roadblocks. There are going to be detours. And so she was already thinking, how can I create that analogy into a statement that will support, my student and students in her course? So that was really cool, that even in our discussion about a teaching philosophy, it's really getting her to think about the culture of care and how she can really support a specific student like this military student. There was also another, I thought was really a really important statement, is that there's a huge difference between posting a teaching philosophy in your course and creating a culture in your course. And because you can post a philosophy, but if you're not going to follow it up with creating and developing that culture of care, the statement will be meaningless without the actions behind it. And then finally, giving in and giving an extension is not the culture of care. And I thought, wow, that's huge. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't provide extensions
and incompletes, but that's not really a definition of the culture of care. So.
Paul, that's awesome. I really like that too. That you're not giving in. But I do want to point out that we can always look to Newton Miller for wonderful nuggets. And in the chat, he said, "Their success is my success." And I think that is just an amazing summation of what the culture of care is that their success is your success. And I really love that. Continue to put things in the chat if you didn't have a chance to share. Amy has just a little bit more to share with you before we let you leave. And let me bring up the rest of our PowerPoint presentation, and then I will hand it back over to you.
Sorry, still on mute there. Okay, so how can this teaching philosophy connected to the culture of care benefit you, the faculty? What's in it for you? Well, you get to focus on what you love. It allows instructors to focus on the teaching, spending time with students, engaging with them, sharing your expertise, discussing the big questions in your field. That's one of the things you can do. Another thing is the alignment. Aligning your teaching philosophy to the UAGC culture of care benefits the instructor in the decisions surrounding students and student work. Those will already be made for you, and they'll be in line with your values and the institution and evidence-informed beliefs about teaching. Next, improve confidence in the classroom. Completing the leveraging of teaching philosophy curriculum, or what is also called the annual faculty curriculum, will enhance your understanding or perhaps even encourage you to seek out additional information on learning theory, cognitive science, and how these, combined with the culture of care, can improve your classroom experience. And finally, making a difference. The proof is there. The culture of care has been shown to improve student retention, student persistence, student belongings, and finally, student outcomes. And I will hand it back to Diana now. Thank you so much.
Now Diana has to remember to unmute. So again, I know we keep saying teams, but we really want this to be an ongoing conversation. We know that not everybody can make it in real time, so we don't want anyone to feel left out, that they didn't get to be a part of the conversation. So we will put a copy of the presentation, a copy of the recording into Teams. We're going to post those nuggets that we got from the statements that we all developed together. We're going to post those in the channel, and we really would love for you to come back to that and help us refine it, make comments on it, look at what everybody else said, maybe, as Amy would say, noodle on it for a little bit and see how it can work into your practices. And I want a bumper sticker that says, "Their success is my success." Just saying. All right. Again, we appreciate that you coming to this session. We'll pass this on with the resources and references, and we hope to see you again next month. We'll be here again on Thursday for the same presentation. So if you missed part of it, or if you just want to come back and talk to us again, we will be here Thursday at 3 p.m. Pacific time. Thank you, everyone, for coming. I really enjoyed the session. I hope you did too. Bye.